The gentleman from Halifax, Mr. Hogan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for the purpose of a motion.
Gentleman may state it.
I move that we re-refer Senate Bill 1242 on page 18 to the Committee on Appropriations.
Mr. Speaker?
The gentleman from Alexandria, Mr. Ebbin, speaking to the motion.
Yes, I would ask if the gentleman from Halifax would yield for a question.
Gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Gentleman yields.
I would ask the gentleman, yesterday he said he would speak with the patron about this motion. I would ask the gentleman if he's had a chance to do so.
Yes. I haven't communicated directly, but other people in our caucus have informed her that this motion will be made.
And if I might ask another question, Mr. Speaker, would the gentleman yield?
Will the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Gentleman yields.
What is the purpose of the motion? Why is this motion being put forward?
Because we believe that this bill may have a fiscal impact on the state's health insurance pool.
Would the gentleman yield for another question?
Will the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Gentleman yield.
I would ask the gentleman, in reading the bill, on lines 17 and 18, it talks specifically about the governing body of any locality that self-funds a health insurance program for their officers and employees. I would like to ask the gentleman why that would impact on a state insurance.
I would answer the gentleman by saying that we've been in communication with the Attorney General's office. We have not had a chance to finish those conversations. There's some feeling that it will in spite of that language, and I guess I'd answer the gentleman by saying that's why we're going to send it back to committee.
If the gentleman would yield for another question.
Will the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Gentleman yield.
If I might ask the gentleman, in terms of his communication with the Attorney General's office, is there any... Who's he been speaking with, and what have they said, in what form?
I would say to the gentleman that in the rush of trying to get through today and other days as we move through the legislative process, I have several messages here from the Attorney General's office from several people, and I haven't had a chance to communicate with those folks yet. I have other people who are concerned about this, and I guess I'd answer the gentleman by saying that's why we want to send it back to committee to try to work that out.
Mr. Speaker, would the gentleman yield for another question?
Will the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Gentleman yield.
If I could ask the gentleman who in the Attorney General's office he's been in communication with about this bill.
I would answer the gentleman by saying the appropriate people in the Attorney General's office that deal with that subject matter.
Speaking to the motion, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I had heard that members of this body were quoting concerns that the Attorney General had with this bill. So yesterday I called the Attorney General's office. I asked to speak with the Attorney General, who was not available. I asked to speak with the Deputy Attorney General, who was not available. I asked to speak to the Attorney General's counsel, who was not available. I left a message saying that I was very concerned that I would like to have the opportunity to talk to them specifically about their concerns with Senate Bill 1242. I was called back by Nicole Riley, Special Assistant for Legislative Affairs in the Office of the Attorney General. She said, quote, and I wrote this down as she said it to me, "We haven't given any information or opinion on the bill. I'm not aware that we've given any advice." I asked Ms. Riley to leave an urgent message for the Attorney General and for the Chief Deputy Attorney General and for the Council that if the Attorney General or the office was advising members of this body, that I would like to be privy to that advice as well. The Attorney General is our counsel for all members of the General Assembly, not just for one or for one party or one caucus. And I would submit that this bill does not have a fiscal impact. It is clear to me by reading the bill on lines 17 and 18, this bill only applies to governing bodies of localities that self-fund. And self-fund means that they fund it with their own funds. It does not mean that the state funds. Further, on lines 34 through 36, it makes it very clear that they do not have to offer certain programs if they're covered by the state. So I would say that there's no fiscal impact and that we've got a bill that's legitimately came through a Senate subcommittee, Senate full committee, Senate vote, almost, I think it was 36-4, that passed out of our committee process with a normal public hearing, at which time anyone who felt there was a fiscal impact, and I believe that that there is no fiscal impact statement, because I believe it says there is no fiscal impact, that would be the appropriate time to level these concerns, and that further, if the gentleman from Halifax cannot detail why these concerns that they should be dealt with in debate here today for the members of the body. So I would say let's have an up or down vote on this bill that simply allows local governments to extend health insurance. Most of us are on record in saying that we like to have people having health insurance. And let's have a vote on the policy matter. I would ask all the members of the body, regardless of your position on the underlying bill, to vote no on the motion so that we can take this up in our normal process.
The gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Hall, speaking to the motion.
Mr. Speaker, would the gentleman from Alexandria yield for a question?
Will the gentleman yield?
I will.
Gentleman
Mr.
yield.
Speaker, I'd just like to ask the gentleman, the fact that the bill states self-funded retirement, does the gentleman mean that that would have absolutely no relationship whatsoever to the Virginia retirement system?
Well, I'm talking about the insurance on line 18 and 19, which is not the retirement, it's just the insurance for
Are they debating the bill?
for employees, health insurance.
So, Mr. Speaker, would the gentleman yield for another question?
Gentleman yield?
So, in other
The
words,
gentleman yields. He didn't say so, but he meant to.
Yes.
So, in other words, this is only paid by the locality, has no connection whatsoever with the state.
Yes, 100%.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Prince William, Mr. Marshall.
Are these discussions related to the motion or to the underlying bill?
I'm going to have to say they're to the underlying bill, and we probably should move on.
Okay.
We have. Gentleman from Newport News, Mr. Hamilton, speaking to the motion. Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really haven't paid a whole lot of attention to the underlying intention of the bill, but I was intrigued by some of the conversation about this being self-funded. It's my recollection that 51% of the general fund revenues in the state budget are returned to localities, and I'm not sure how those fungible monies are used back at the locality, and I think that was the purpose behind the gentleman's motion, is since we make such a significant contribution back to localities with state funds, that he wants the Appropriations Committee to have an opportunity to look at this bill, and I hope we would refer it back to Appropriations.
The motion offered by the gentleman from Halifax, Mr. Hogan, is to refer Senate Bill 1242 to the Committee on Appropriations. Many in favor of that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No. Ayes and nays. Put it up.
There's sufficient up. Shall the motion to re-refer be agreed to?
Vote, go green. Procedural vote, go green.
Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 56, noes 41.
Ayes 56, noes 41. The motion is agreed to.